Are parts of America turning into the third world?
Well, it certainly feels that way, given the current administration's policy on immigration and border security. There are certain communities in America that have an influx of migrants, an influx of illegal aliens in their communities, sometimes doubling their population. And what comes along with that is what we've seen in many instances is crimes and other types of activities that community is not accustomed to. So it usually occurs in smaller cities, but we are also experiencing this same phenomenon in places like New York City, Chicago, Denver, and other large cities in America. So over the course of the last 3.5 years, we've had about 12 million illegal aliens cross our southern border illegally. And how many have stayed and where are they at now? It's tough to discern, and the federal government can't even tell you where they're at and how many have stayed.
What do you make of the reports coming out of Springfield, Ohio, that Haitian migrants have been causing issues, particularly stealing pets, eating pets? I know that the police have said, this hasn't happened, but there have been some local reports about this. So what do you make of this story?
Well, again, this is just another example. This is the result of having misguided, radical, and I would say just flawed immigration policies. And we not only see that here in the United States, we see this obviously overseas and in Europe as well, as a number of countries have experienced similar instances. And so what this says, particularly the one that you brought up, these are Haitians, right? So under the Biden-Harris administration, they've provided temporary protective status, what we call TPS, to Haitians. They've also given them parole, and they have flown Haitians into the country. And it's been over about 500,000 in the last 3.5 years, Haitians that have been resettled in the United States in various communities. And it's no surprise to me that obviously in 1 or 2 or 3 communities, there's a large population. They often will stay together in certain communities. And so I think you have a lot of residents around America. You have a lot of residents in Europe and others that are seeing an influx of migrants, illegal aliens in some cases, into their communities, and they want to understand what's going on. Why is this occurring? They haven't been asked, right? Their input hasn't been considered. And the local officials, particularly here in America, mayors and governors and things like that represent these folks at the local level also have not been asked, also have not been informed by the federal government. And I think that's one of the most disconcerting things, and that's where a lot of the anger and frustration comes from. Because it's one thing to have these folks in your community and be told why it's occurring. It's another thing to just have it happen over the course of several days or weeks and not be told why, not be told how, and how they're being accommodated. I think that's what's really disconcerting.
Are you worried particularly that these migrants have come from Haiti, which is essentially a failed state? I think objectively you could say that. Trump infamously was very critical of Haiti. Are you concerned about particularly migrants from Haiti and other sort of, as I said, third world countries, as opposed to migrants from, sort of richer, wealthier Western nations?
Well, look, I'm of the opinion that any individual coming to the United States, whether they come legally or obviously illegally, the United States needs to vet them. We need to interview them. We need to talk to them, and we need to understand how they came, why they're coming, and where they plan to go. I think that's just a fundamental kind of bar that needs to occur. Now, when you have illegal aliens coming from places like Haiti or Venezuela, Nicaragua, and other places here in the Western Hemisphere that all give us concern about their intentions here, right? We have a large influx of Venezuelans, over 800,000 Venezuelans in the last 3.5 years that have come into the United States. And right now we see a lot of violent crime by a gang out of Venezuela. And so you have to connect the two. And I think that's what folks are really, really concerned about. And it's not necessarily, yes, they are a failed state, but it's also the fact that Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and other countries around the world don't share information with the United States, right? And so it's hard to vet the individuals coming in versus, a country like the UK or Germany or a first world country. Lots of those countries share information with the United States, so we have a good understanding of who's coming in and what their intentions are. But we don't have that with a lot of countries around the world, and that makes it difficult to administer a functioning immigration system.
You talked about many people wondering why so many illegal migrants have entered the United States in recent years. What's your answer to that? Why do you think so many people have entered the country?
Well, look, I think the United States is one of the greatest countries on the face of the earth, and I think a lot of people want to come here for the opportunity to live that American dream, and that's okay. And I don't fault anyone for that. But there is a legal way to come here, and there is certainly an illegal way to come here. And when people choose to break the law, if you're coming to the United States for the first time, or any country in Europe or anywhere else around the world, if the first thing that you do is break the law in order to get in, well, you've started on the wrong foot. And we've started this relationship in the worst way possible, but yet that's what they're doing. And I think the policies by the Biden-Harris administration has encouraged this, have facilitated this. They have allowed these folks, once you cross illegally into the United States, you're simply given a ticket to show up 6 or 7 years down the road, and you're released into American communities, and then they have no idea where you go and what you do, and we see a lot of after effects of that, right? How does that affect public education systems when you have over 500,000 children that have come across the world to the United States? Those go into school systems around the country, and English is not their first language, right? And so what does that do to the teacher resources and others? All these downstream effects are really affecting American communities, and that's what people are frustrated about, because they didn't sign up for this. They didn't sign up to allow 12 million illegal aliens to come across that border. They don't approve of that, and they want to see a change in that policy.
I suppose my question really was, why did the Biden-Harris administration enable this? You talk about their policies. What's their motivation behind sort of letting so many people in?
That's a great question. I think only they will know, but you have to listen closely to what they say. They talk about administering an immigration system that's consistent with their values, but I think their values are very different than the majority of Americans, right? Their values are, they believe that anyone and everyone should be able to come to the United States for whatever reason that they want. And that's just not the way that U.S. law, immigration law, is written. You have to come here legally, or you have to come here with a valid asylum claim or refugee status. And if you don't, then you shouldn't be here in the United States. But the Biden administration, Harris administration, they don't care about that. They just believe anyone and everyone should come. Once you're here, they believe that you shouldn't be removed or deported back to your home country, even if you go through the due process system. Even if an immigration judge tells you don't have a legal right to remain in the United States, you must leave. The Biden-Harris team does not want to remove you. And then they want the American people to believe that the United States is about the only country in the world that anyone should seek asylum or refugee status in. And that's simply not the case, right? The norm around the world and around the globe is that you seek asylum closest to your home country, so that when conditions improve, you can go back to your home country and again, make your life there. So there's a variety of values that they base their policies off of that I think are widely unpopular, widely out of date, that the majority of U.S. citizens and Americans believe in.
Now, you served under the Trump administration. Do you admit that there were some mistakes made by the Trump team, particularly in terms of building the wall? Because he didn't build the wall as he promised in its entirety. And the illegal immigration sort of issue wasn't fixed by Donald Trump. So do you think there are some mistakes that were made in the first administration?
Look, I think that you can always improve upon what you did. What I will say is I would disagree with a couple of those questions and comments. You talked about a wall that wasn't built. We built over 750 miles of new border wall system. That's not only the physical infrastructure, but that's the radars, the cameras, the roads, giving Border Patrol agents a new capability that they never had before. President Trump came in, at least campaigned on in 2016 about a wall, 2,000 miles on that southern border. He talked to Border Patrol after he came in. That number was revised down into a manageable number where Border Patrol officers and agents wanted physical infrastructure. So we built 750. We had plans to continue about another 200 or so miles to get to the priority locations, and we were on track to do that. So this notion or this myth that we didn't build any border wall system. I'm not sure where that comes from, because if you go down to the southern border, as I have over the last 3.5 years, and I go to each and every section of that southern border, there's physical infrastructure there that Border Patrol agents are very happy to have. As far as the larger immigration system, we got some of our illegal immigration numbers down to the lowest that we have ever seen, starting in late 2019 and into 20. And we were building on the success of that. Did it start a little late in President Trump's first term? I will acknowledge that it did. We had some hiccups in 2017 and 18, but we got it back on track. And we started to know what worked and what didn't work. And all of that was, of course, ended in January of 21. Look, what's occurring in the United States right now is we have never seen this in the history of our country. We have never seen our southern border as open, as accessible to the cartels as we have today. And there's one reason for that, and that's because of the policies of this administration. It's not for any other reason. It's not because it's a seasonal change or it's cyclical or there's weather patterns or anything else. It's because of the policies that have enabled this, the inability to remove people from the country and not having a consequence to illegal behavior. And that alone has driven this crisis for almost 4 years now.
Is this an invasion?
Well, I think it is. It's an invasion by the cartels. They know exactly what they're doing. They have trafficked more humans across our southern border over the last 4 years than at any other point in our history. I don't know what else you call it. If the cartels are not invading our southern border each and every day, they control large portions of that southern border. I know that may be, people can say, how can that be? But our Border Patrol, there's only so many agents and operators, and there's 4 different cartels that control that southern border, and they decide when and where they push humans, illegal narcotics, and other contraband around that border. They are, in many cases, well armed, more than Border Patrol. They have better technology, and why is that? Because over the last 4 years, they have made more money because of the human trafficking that we have seen than at any other time. So they've got more money, more power, control more territory than we have seen, because we have basically given control of our southern border to these cartel members.
And finally, what about the issue of legal migration? I know Republicans like to focus on illegal, but there are many people who say, actually, there are far too many people coming to the United States legally. We just can't cope with this amount of immigration in terms of infrastructure and changing the society, changing the American culture in a very fast way. So what about the issue of legal migration?
Yeah, I think it's a great debate. I think that's a debate that Congress should have, right? Our legal immigration system and all the different visas and all the different categories is 20 to 30 years old. It doesn't reflect how the country operates today, and I think that's a really good debate to have, right? What's the right number in the mix of seasonal workers and temporary workers and agricultural workers versus high-tech workers and others, right? We have a diversity visa lottery. We have all these different lottery systems that give out visas. Is that the best way? Should it be more merit-based? Should we be attracting the best and the brightest here to the United States through our immigration system? These are all great debates for Congress to have. However, if you don't have any control over your border, then you can devise and you can reform a legal immigration system, but it makes no difference. If a migrant or an illegal, foreign national has to wait in line, be vetted for a visa that may take 3, 4, 5 months, but yet they can walk across the southern border, be released in 72 hours and have a work permit 2 months later, guess what? That's the route that they're going to choose, and that's the route they can choose today under this administration. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way here in the United States or in Europe. There's a different way to make sure that your country's safe, secure, but yet you continue to be a welcoming country. The United States gives year over year over 1 million visas to migrants all over the world to come in here legally to the United States. A very, very welcoming country. We're the only country that gives out that number. And so we're just asking, come here the legal way and not do it illegally, because illegally you may have all the right intentions in the world to come here, but you're going to be embedded because you're going to have to pay a cartel member. And so guess what? You're probably going to be crossing that border with other criminals from other countries that our Border Patrol and our law enforcement have to deal with.
So you don't think that number's too high? 1 million visas every year, that's fine with you?
Again, that was the average that we saw administered during the Trump administration. So that's been about the average over the last several decades. And again, you can decide within that number what's the right mix of high-tech visas, low-skilled visas, ag visas, temporary visas, and the like. And I think that's a good debate. I'm not sure the diversity visa lottery is the right way to go. It seems like it's by chance versus a more merit-based, bringing in skills that we need here in the United States to continue to fuel our economy. I think that's the way our legal immigration system should work.